Hello everybody, welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast. Today, it is another League One roundup. It was Easter weekend in Sky Bet League One. What an incredible weekend it turned out to be. In fact, we normally do 4 selected games here on the podcast for our roundups. Today, we're doing 5. That is how incredible this weekend of football it really was. Looking at the games tactically, looking at how the key players matched up in the different games as well, and what these results mean for these sides as we head now into 3/4 games until the end of the season. How did your team get on? I want to hear from you. Are you happy with your team's result/performance? Are you happy with your team's league position after the result? Did it affect, did the result, did the performance reflect the position? Did it impact that at any point? Let me know in the comments down below. I want to hear from you. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. We're on the road now to 1.18 thousand subscribers. Hit that subscribe button. It really would mean the world. Like I said, it's 5 selected games in this episode of the podcast. Let's not mess about. Let's get straight into it. So we'll start off with Rotherham against Ipswich Town. This was really fascinating. I actually watched this game. This was one of the games on Sky Sports, and having these games on Sky Sports, having these League One games on Sky Sports is brilliant for the league, but also brilliant for fans as well, because we get to have a little watch of, in more detail, the other teams without having to worry about your team when you're playing against them and worrying about your team's performance and result, because ultimately you don't really concentrate too much on the opposition when you're playing them. So it's a really, really good opportunity to look at Ipswich, look at Rotherham, and really just highlight how good I thought both these sides have been this season. Even though Ipswich maybe would have hoped to be slightly higher in the league at this point in the season, Rotherham's recent slip, they really would have hoped hadn't have happened. But ultimately, there's no doubt these two sides have got serious quality. These are brilliant footballing sides. The in League One, it's a brilliant advert, by the way, for League One football as well. Only 1 goal was in the game, but you can still see the quality. I think a lot of people maybe frown if they don't watch League One week in, week out. People frown on the quality, and you think it's 2 leagues below the Premier League. You know, there's a bit of a natural stereotypical mindset there that it's 2 leagues lower in quality. Now, it technically is, but you can clearly see there's still top quality in League One. And these sides definitely did prove it live on Sky Sports yesterday. And one thing I would say as well, watching it, and there was part of me as an Oxford United head, with my Oxford United head on, thinking, could Rotherham maybe slip up again, and Ipswich maybe could get something more from the game? Oxford maybe could slip in instead of Rotherham. I don't think that's going to happen now, although that wasn't a big part of it. That was a part of me was like, if I had to support one team here, probably would be Ipswich to a certain extent. But there was no part of me that was celebrating or being too upset when Rotherham scored. And one thing I would say now, with this result, I think Rotherham in a really, really good place now, looking at definitely the top 6, maybe even the top 2. And I think for Rotherham, this recent form, there's a bit of a worry that how far could they slip? How far could it get worse? And I think we've shown, and I think they showed yesterday, a bit of a reaction. They needed a reaction, and they certainly got one against a top side like Ipswich. Both sides playing some brilliant football, like I've already said, this season. As for Ipswich, I think the first half was probably Ipswich's. And you can see, looking at the momentum graph, it's quite interesting watching the game. I don't normally obviously watch the 90 minutes of football when I look at it. I normally just base it off this and do a bit of research by speaking to some fans that were maybe at the game or maybe supporters of these clubs. But what I can see here, looking at it and from just watching it and then sort of visualising it on this momentum graph, that probably is a fair reflection of it. One thing I would say, I think Ipswich probably were slightly more, were more dominant across the first half. I think Rotherham did have their moments. I think that's quite fairly visualised. But I definitely do agree with this. I think when Ipswich had their spell, they had a really, really good spell, and they had a really good chance. Wes Burns, who was absolutely phenomenal yesterday, by the way, especially in the first half, for sure. I thought it was really, really good. And he almost plays the right winger in the right wing-back position. I think that's a brilliant outlet for Ipswich. Of course, defensively, maybe that can leave them a little bit exposed, but it hasn't done really, because you've got someone like, you've got the back three. You've got a really stable back three behind them, and you've got a manager like Kieran McKenna who's come in and shored up that Ipswich defence. So you can trust the likes of Wes Burns to be a bit more on the offensive, a bit more attacking, a bit more free on that right-hand side. Although he's playing like a winger in that right wing-back position, he's a great outlet to have. And you could see with the chance they had when Wes Burns, a brilliant piece of crossing ability to get it into the penalty area, a good piece of skill initially, and then a brilliant cross into James Norwood. And someone like James Norwood, you probably would expect a little bit better than that. Of course, the striker today, Joe Pigott, not favoured, and Bon on the bench as well. But you see, James Norwood, he did have a big chance in the game. He probably should have done a little bit better with it. I'd say he should have definitely scored, or definitely got it on target. He missed the ball completely, and it's a really big chance for Ipswich. I think if they'd scored that goal, it would have made it really, really quite interesting, because I think then it would have, I think honestly, then Ipswich would have to, also I think Rotherham and Ipswich would both have to adapt to the games much, much differently. I think because it stayed 0-0, it was then a little bit more even. And I think it was actually after that big chance, you could say. I think Rotherham then got back into the game. So it would have been interesting to see if Ipswich had scored, how Rotherham would have reacted to that. I think ultimately when it went 0-0, I think Rotherham probably was counting their stars a little bit and then just got a little bit and then got a run going in the game. And they really started picking up the game and really getting hold of the match and being a bit more momentum when they look going forward. We know the quality of Rotherham that Rotherham have got. You can see the graph here. You can see the second half of the first half, it probably was a little bit more Rotherham. A little bit dead, I'd say, for the last sort of 5 minutes of the game, still keeping it quite tight. Of course, it being 0-0, so let's just get to half-time 0-0. That's probably was the message from both of those managers. Maybe a little bit more for Kieran McKenna. I think Ipswich maybe would have, if they could, make the most of that first half. A little spree they had after Ipswich's moment in the first half. And then the second half, I mean, it definitely was Rotherham's half. You can see here, look at the momentum graph, and it was exactly the same. Watching it, you can see the dominance that Rotherham had in the second half. Although Ipswich had their moments, it was generally very, very Rotherham, and sort of in the end, the 78th minute, the man that they were highlighting a lot on Sky Sports in the pre-match, and we know the quality he's got this season, we know the goals and the amount of goals that he's got this season, the type of striker he is, the physical striker with a brilliant end product to him. Michael Smith makes it 1-0 in the 78th minute, and actually it's probably the last spike of a few spikes in that second half, but really quite dominant Rotherham in the second half, and you could probably tell, I think Paul Warren probably at half-time said, look lads, you've got to get going in this second half, you've got to be more relentless, you've got to get on the ball, you've got to be a bit more in control of the game, definitely wave the attacks more regularly, because otherwise Ipswich, they've got the quality, no doubt, to be much better defensively. They have been at the start of the season, so that's not going to be a problem. I think at the back, but they've also got the quality going forward. I think obviously there was a change in system with the way that Rotherham played as well. They sort of went with a bit more of a front three. Belazer was dropped actually going into this game, but then came on quite early because of an injury to Miller. So it was really, really quite a fascinating game, and I stress it again, really good actually watching a game like this. That when you're not, when Oxford aren't playing Rotherham, when Oxford aren't playing Ipswich, looking at a game pretty much from a purely neutral perspective, analysing the game and looking at what this means now for these sides actually on the pitch, like I said, without having to worry too much about your side. Having a look at the league table though, because I think that's really, really important. What does this mean now? What does this result mean for these sides? I think for Ipswich, it probably means the same as it did if they'd won the game or before the game had even kicked off, really. They're not going to be worried about a top 6 finish. They're not going to be worrying about anything like that, I don't think, this season. Again, not a win in the last 3 games. There'll be a little bit of a concern for Kieran McKenna. I think his message now is just to get to the end of the season, have a really, really good summer, have a really good pre-season, maybe bring a few players in. That's what you can imagine for Ipswich. Definitely regroup, maybe offload a few players and then try and not rebuild. I don't think it needs a rebuild. I think that probably happened last season, but probably bring in a few more players, definitely bolster the squad and definitely improve the squad any way they can, which I think, look at a team 10th in the league, there definitely are ways that you can improve it. I think Kieran McKenna will definitely be on that. I think that'll probably be definitely on the top of his agenda. In terms of Rotherham, what does this mean? I think it means a lot for Rotherham, to be honest. Like I said, the slip they had before that, 3 consecutive defeats coming into this game, a home game against Ipswich, it wasn't going to be easy, and it'd be interesting to see how the morale and how the psychological effects these players were going to be able to deal with this game. Turns out they dealt with it pretty well. 3 games without a win coming into this game, I think was really, really quite impressive. And that 3 points take them back in to the top 2 places, back into those automatic promotion places. Really, really exciting stuff for Rotherham. Now, can they build on that? That's going to be the message now. Although it's a brilliant win, you should celebrate that win, as I imagine they do, to get back to winning ways. You can't really rest on your laurels now. What you've got to do is to take that win and now see it till the end of the season. They've got a game in hand on MK Dons, Plymouth, and any team really with 43 points. They have got an extra game in hand, not on Wigan, interestingly, and probably quite annoyingly for Rotherham. But ultimately, it's a really, really good win for them as well, and it gets better when Wigan lose. We'll come on to that game, of course we will. But a really good win for Rotherham in the end. Is their title charge still on? It probably is. I still think Wigan are definitely going to be favourites. You look at the points gap, there is still a substantial points gap there, and obviously the same amount of games does make it difficult. But with Wigan losing, how could that derail their season? We'll come on to them in just a second. But nevertheless, a really, really good result for Rotherham. In the end, it ends 1-0 to them. Right, then let's go to Wigan, actually. Let's go to them. Let's go to Wigan. We mentioned it just a second ago. How much of this defeat is going to affect Wigan's late title charge? Or, I mean, ultimately, I've said it before, it probably isn't a title charge. I mean, it is, but it probably isn't in the sense they've got to catch it. Obviously, they are top of the league already going into this game. I think it's just sort of protecting what they've already got, protecting being top spot. That would have been the message going into this game. Of course, with Rotherham winning, it was really important that Wigan won. Unfortunately, it wasn't the case. And this season, guys, interestingly, just more unpredictable. And you think it can't get more unpredictable. You think surely Wigan, the form they're on, where they're on the league table, the quality they've got, no disrespect to Cambridge, they've been really good this season, but surely they get a win at this one at home. Absolutely not. 2-0 down within, I think, quite early in the game. But yeah, well, not early. Well, yeah, 33, 43 minutes within the first half, 2-0 down. I mean, that's League One for you. That's League One this season. All in one, to be honest. In terms of the momentum graph, I'm going to be honest, I didn't actually watch this game. I watched the game after that, but I didn't watch this one. But I can see, looking at the momentum graph here, you can see the first half, it probably was more Cambridge, to be honest. They had more spikes to the game. Wigan had a more substantial spike in the middle of the half. You can see when the goals came, they came on in the last two spikes of the first half for Cambridge United, and being very, very clinical. And this is what you've got to be against these top sides. When you have those chances, and when you have those spikes, you've got to be as clinical as you possibly can. We've seen it a lot of times this year. We'll be doing this throughout the entire season. The teams that win, remember, it was Shrewsbury against Rotherham when they won 3-0 at Rotherham. They didn't have many spikes to the game. It wasn't a large patch of spikes. Rotherham definitely had more of the ball in that one, but when they had the moments, when they had the spikes, it was 100% Shrewsbury, and in this case, Cambridge, that took the chance when they had those moments. And we bang on about it all the time in football. It's all about moments, taking the chances, being clinical in front of goal, and making the most of your dominant spells. Although Cambridge weren't dominant for a substantial amounts of the game, when they did have those chances, they took them, and they end up going in at half-time against league leaders 2-0 away from home. That's the quality they had. Looking at the second half, starts a little bit quieter. I mean, Wigan probably edging that one, then a bit of Cambridge, and then quite a substantial piece of Wigan spell, then a bit of Cambridge, and then everything Wigan Athletic. And you see at that point, hitting it probably about the 65th minute, I think probably the realisation kicked in, to be honest. We need to get something from this game. We need to go and get back into this game as quickly as possible. Getting it back to 2-1, and then looking at 10, 15 minutes to go, even 5 minutes to go, you could argue there's definitely a chance to just scrap a point out of it. I think it's 2-0 down in the 65th minute. I think you definitely snap your hand off for a point. Now, Cambridge, they do get going. Wigan do get going. They have a really big spike in the game, and they score, of course, through Tom Naylor, the midfielder. Brilliant season that man's having, and he scores for a really, really good piece of play. And Max Power got the assist in that one. But you can see here then, to be honest, what Wigan needed to do there, I think the message probably would have been, now keep it on top. Now go again and try and search for an equalising goal. Although they did do that. Interestingly, Cambridge then had a really big spike in the game, probably about the 80th minute, and that's when you expected Wigan to be really going at it. They did Wigan get back into control of the game, and then had a really last-ditch spell to try and get just a point from a match that they really had done quite well in the second half, but across the 90 minutes, probably not their best game of football at all. They don't do it. They don't score the goal, and Cambridge hold on to a 2-1 win. But really, really impressive stuff for Cambridge. Is this going to derail Wigan's title charge? Probably not. I'm going to be honest, it probably isn't. I'm still sticking with my guys. I think Wigan will go on and win the league, just because of the gap between the points at the moment. Now, maybe Wigan could do a Rotherham, lose one game and then go on a bit of a losing streak. I don't know. Interesting. We'll have a look at Wigan's next games. And they've got Ipswich away and then Plymouth at home. Maybe then. I didn't look at them. I mean, they are tough games, but there's no doubt that losing at home to Cambridge is going to be what we're going to remember for this season. They've been absolutely phenomenal through the campaign. This looked to be a little bit of a result that a little bit of a shock result. 68% possession across the games. Are dominant in possession. In terms of big chances, that isn't actually on there. They had more passes in the game, almost double the passes. 544 passes. Better accuracy with their passes as well. It looks as though Cambridge a little bit loose in possession, but you can imagine they were just trying to, probably at one point, hitting it long, get it away from the opposition penalty area. In terms of long balls, they actually have more long balls. Cambridge, as you can imagine as well, getting in behind, playing a little bit different. You'd sort of expect that. But ultimately, it finishes 2-1 to Cambridge United. Brilliant stuff for Cambridge. A brilliant result for them. They could derail Wigan's title retainment, not in terms of winning it last season, in terms of being at that position at the moment. We'll have to go and wait and see. But Wigan 1, Cambridge United 2 is the scoreline there. So how do Wycombe do it? Well, they do it very, very well, don't they, under Gareth Ainsworth? Very, very distinctive style of play, but it works. You can't argue with it too much, although it probably isn't the most attractive style of play. It wins games, it gets results, and it definitely proves successful for Wycombe, especially. We look at 2 seasons ago getting promoted out of League One into the Championship, very nearly staying up in the Championship last season, and then this season looking like they're going to finish in the top 6 once again. Very, very impressive stuff for Wycombe Wanderers, although they're not in the top 6 at the moment. The what the run they currently find themselves on, and the momentum you think they take from this sort of game, I think could prove absolutely massive. But, you know, in the first half, it probably was more of Wycombe's half, you could say. Definitely more in terms of going forward, being more clinical when you attack the game. You can see here, they got their goals with the first spike and then a bit of Plymouth in between the second goal. And then the second goal goes in. McCleary with both of those goals. And then a little bit of Wycombe, little bit of Plymouth. But you can see the biggest spikes in the first half both come from Wycombe. And they go and score in both of those spikes. Being clinical. You know, one thing we would say about Gareth Ainsworth's side is being clinical when they have the moments, taking those chances. Because like I said, they're not the most attractive style of play. They won't have all the ball. You see in this game, I think Plymouth, have more of the possession, 57% possession in this game. They won't have as much of the ball. They won't be as dominant, won't be in control as many of the games. But what they will do is going to get the hold of the ball. They're a bit more direct, a bit more aggressive, and they'll definitely cause problems for the opposition once again this season. And once again in this game, they do exactly that. Gareth McCleary scoring 2 goals in the first half. And you go in at half-time, Wycombe 2-0 up, and that's the perfect scoreline. Plymouth fans, I've been there as well. We were there at Wycombe probably about 2 months ago now when we were playing against them at Adams Park. It was we lost that game 2-0 as well. And you could see the way that Wycombe were playing. When they go 2-0 up, it's almost impossible to get back into the game. I know Cheltenham have done it, I think 5-5, I think, and Wycombe have done it a few times with their high scoreline goals, as a scoreline game, sorry. But you can see Wycombe and you can see what they try and do when they're on it, and I don't think they were on it when they played against Cheltenham, you could say. But when they're on it against teams like Plymouth and teams like Oxford this season, when they go 2-0 up and they're well structured, they're well organised, they're well drilled, and they've got a place to get to, and that's the top 6, and they're really sort of well driven in their aims, they're such a difficult team to get back into the game against, because again, they're so in control, they're 2-0 up, they're aggressive, they do the dark arts so well, and sometimes you've got to play a little bit in the dark art side of football to get results in this league. Wycombe are an absolute advert for that, and you can't disrespect it too much, because like I said, it's proven so successful. In terms of the star man, there's probably no other man but Gareth McCleary to highlight here. Of course, 88-minute game, 88 minutes he played, but 2 goals in those 88 minutes, 8.5 rating, 44 touches, 70% pass accuracy, 3 key passes in the game as well. So not just the goals that he was a key part of and scoring, he was also very good in terms of trying to be more creative in the way that Wycombe get going in an attacking sense. In terms of the league table, what does it mean for these sides? Well, it does mean Wycombe are now back in that top 6. 6th in the league. I said they weren't in the top 6, didn't I? I think they actually are. I got that wrong. Of course, it was actually Sunderland I thought were in the top 6. It's not, even though they did score in the last minute. It does mean that Sunderland now dropped back out of it, as that is my apologies. But Wycombe now back in the top 6. That doesn't really take away anything I've already said. They've definitely more streamlined in their psychological approach now. Staying in the top 6 is what they're going to try and do. And wins like that against teams like Plymouth, I think, are going to prove absolutely massive. Now, my question to Plymouth fans is, are you nervous? Are you worried about the end of the season? Although you haven't won a game in the last 2 and a disappointing result against Wycombe yesterday, is it a twitchy point in the season for you? Are you still worried maybe about finishing the top 6? If I'm being honest, if I was a Plymouth fan, I probably wouldn't be, but Plymouth have got some really difficult games coming up. Their next games are really quite difficult. Where are they? Here they are. Is it want to load? Are we not going to be able to see who they've got left? We will find a way. We will find a way of looking at what Plymouth have got next, because they've got some really difficult games coming up. I believe they've still got Sunderland play. Yeah, Sunderland at home next week, and then Wigan. Well, it's not next week, is it? It's the 18th, so it's actually tomorrow. So you got Wigan playing against Plymouth after that, and then you've got the final game of the season, if that's right. Yeah, they've got MK Dons at home. They've got 3, and the next 3 games for Plymouth are absolutely... They're huge, and they're massive games, and they're also very substantial games in terms of where the teams are in the league table. It's a very difficult set of games as well. In terms of difficult run-ins, I think Plymouth probably are the definition of that. Is that a concern, Plymouth fans? And I pose a question to you. Are you concerned about that? 78 points, of course, Sunderland on 76 points. There's only 2 points in that. Of course, also, Sunderland have got a game in hand on Plymouth. There's no guarantee Plymouth will be playing playoff football. I'd be a little bit nervous. I'd still be confident Plymouth can do it, but I wouldn't say I'd be too. I'd still be a little bit uncomfortable. I won't lie. I would still be a little bit uncomfortable. You know, you still got Oxford and Sunderland trying to push in there. I don't think Oxford have got too much of a worry about that. Of course, 4 points away from it. Game less, although we won the game. I don't want to drag it out too much. I don't want to make it the old violin Oxford United show. But it's disappointing, Oxford. They win a game, and then every team, Sheffield Wednesday win, Plymouth win, Wycombe win, and Sheffield Wednesday win. So, you know, there we go. That's Sunderland win. So that's football for you, isn't it? But anyway, let's move on to the next one. Really interesting game, but a very Wycombe-esque performance. But you can't doubt it at all. A brilliant win against Plymouth Argyle. Plymouth fans expected it. But it finishes Wycombe 2, Plymouth Argyle 0. Next then, we've got Sunderland against Shrewsbury Town. What is it with Sunderland at the moment? The late show, once again at the Stadium of Light. This side just keeps scoring late goals. It's doing my head in. But fair play to Sunderland. They're doing a brilliant job. They did it against Oxford with Embleton last week. And now they're doing it again against Shrewsbury Town this week. They play with a freedom. They play with a resilience. They play with determination in the last 5 minutes of games. And fair play to them. They definitely do see the positives coming from it. And there clearly is points coming in when they do that. In the end, though, it finishes 3-2. Fair play to Shrewsbury for getting it back to 2-2 after being 2-0 down away from home at the Stadium of Light against a side like Sunderland who have been brilliant in recent weeks. Fair play to them. But it doesn't really matter in the end. It finishes 3-2 and Sunderland then earn a brilliant 3 points and a brilliant win in the end. It probably was Sunderland who deserved to win the game across the 90 minutes. They definitely had more of the ball. They definitely had more of the chances and actually more in that. In looking at the attacking momentum graph, it definitely was Sunderland's game to win. 2 early goals from Sunderland made it really quite interesting from the get-go. Sunderland scored really quite early on through Nathan Broadhead, I believe it was. No, Elliot Embleton, sorry. Then Nathan Broadhead got the second one. And then, again, it probably was Sunderland. A little spell from Shrewsbury. And the end of the first half is definitely all Sunderland. They go in at half-time. And then the second half, it starts Shrewsbury Town. You've got to respect it, honestly. They start the second half really well. They get 2 goals. And that's really important for Shrewsbury. If you're going to have moments against sides like Sunderland, moments as we talk about. If you're going to have a good spell, you're going to be more dominant. You're going to have the attacks. You've got to have more of the ball in an attacking sense. You've got to make the most of it. Because a team like Sunderland, if you don't do that, and you have the moments, you have the attacking spells, but you don't make the most of it, Sunderland will just hang on. Sunderland will try a different way, and no doubt you can see the way that Sunderland ended the game, how good they can be, and the quality that they can show. Absolutely all Sunderland pretty much after 2 goals. It looked as though Shrewsbury were just going to try and hang on to a 2-2. You can expect that. You can understand why they're doing that. But it doesn't work against a side like Sunderland, who score a lot of late goals, who are brilliant when it comes to scoring late on in games. And once again, Sunderland go and do it. In the last minutes of the game, Nathan Broadhead makes it 3-2. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the late show once again at Sunderland because they score another late goal. In terms of the league table, Shrewsbury, again, don't need to worry about relegation. One of those seasons where the last 3 games haven't been brilliant. But, again, they show their quality. When it comes to being clinical in the game. Yeah, in the game that game was on Friday, wasn't it? As for Sunderland, not in the top 6 after a win, unfortunately, because of Sheffield Wednesday and Wycombe winning their games. But all of them win. And, again, it makes it even more difficult for Oxford United. But a brilliant late goal for Sunderland in the end. And I think it's going to prove absolutely massive in their playoff title. Their playoff race. Not a title chase. I don't think we can go that far yet, but certainly their playoff race. Finally then, an extra bonus one. We don't normally do 5 games. We've just got to do it, haven't we? MK Dons against Sheffield Wednesday. It'd be absolutely rude not to look at that game. We had to do 5 games. It was that impressive this weekend in terms of the games we've watched. And this one was absolutely brilliant in terms of a game, in terms of what it means for both of these sides. Now, it's going to be so fascinating. I think MK Dons going into this game hoping to keep a top 2 place in League One this season. They've, of course, been brilliant through the season. But, of course, now, I mean, that is, 2 games without a win for MK Dons. As soon as I said they're a winning machine, as soon as I said they don't stop winning, they go and stop winning. So I'm not going to say anything because we've got MK Dons, Oxford United, on Tuesday. In terms of Sheffield Wednesday, what a win that is. And I mean, that's such an important win for Sheffield Wednesday. This was the perfect result. This is an absolutely gigantic result for Sheffield Wednesday. Away from home against MK Dons, fighting to get in the top 6, knowing that Wycombe had won their game, Sunderland had won their game. It was so important for Sheffield Wednesday to go and win that game. They probably had the hardest game out of all of these 3 sides, and they dealt with it so well. Started the game absolutely brilliantly. In terms of having being clinical in the moments, we talk about a lot of games, and one thing I would say, a lot of games we've spoken about today, being clinical in the moments when you have the chance. chances, go and take them. There's been moments, and look at the second half. We'll have a look at it, but just look at the second half first and foremost, how good and how dominant MK Dons were in the game. But they only go and score one goal. Sheffield Wednesday, 3 big moments, 3 big spikes in the game. They go and make it 3-0 within, the first 40 minutes of the game. 30 minutes of the game. Barry Bannon, absolutely brilliant long range, 40-yard screamer. Lee Gregory, Sadio Berahino, players that have been scoring goals this season, to be fair, make it 3-0. Absolutely brilliant stuff. 3 big moments, 3 big chances, 3 big goals. That's exactly, at this point in the season, all you can ask for. It's not really about how much the ball can have, how many chances can you create. It's about when you get a chance, go and take it, because results at this point in the season are absolutely massive, especially, and I reiterate it, Wycombe win, Sunderland win, Sheffield Wednesday, they've got to try and get something from the game, and they go and do that. They go and get all 3. Fair play to them. Troy Parrott makes it interesting with 5 minutes until the first half is blown up. He makes it 3-1. The second half, it definitely is MK Dons. I think Ian Manning definitely had a bit of a go in them in the the dressing room at half time. They might have been the training room. I don't think it was. It was definitely the dressing room. And they start the second half really, really strong. MK Dons in control of the game, definitely with more of the ball, definitely making more of the chances, and definitely trying to go at Sheffield Wednesday at 3-1. There's definitely a chance for them to get back into the game. Unfortunately, they couldn't make the most of it until right at the end of the game, in about the 90 plus 6th minute, Scott Twine makes it 3-2. That man can't stop with his goal contributions going this season. Absolutely brilliant stuff, and he goes and makes it 3-2. But it isn't enough in the end. Sheffield Wednesday come away with such a significant 3 points, and they go and win the game 3-2. Fair play to Sheffield Wednesday, scoring when it matters and winning games when it matters. Probably a little bit nervy in the last few seconds of the game, but I imagine it was absolutely, and I think Sheffield Wednesday fans would be absolutely thrilled with that result. And in the end, you probably would say performance. Ladies and gentlemen, take care and stay safe. But remember, in the comments down below, I want to hear from you in terms of what you think of these sides and all of the games we've spoken about. Maybe I haven't spoken about that game. I do apologise. We have done 6 games, but it's been a massive, 5 games. We have done a massive amount of games in this episode because we've got so much quality and so many interesting games happen at the weekend. But let me know in the comments down below, you happy with your team's performance and result? And I'll be hearing and responding to all of your thoughts in the comments down below. Until next time, I've been Jack. This has been the Young Fan Podcast. I'll see you all very, very soon. See you in a bit.